When you look at an iPhone, a Mac, or an Apple Watch, you see physical electronics. But those glass and aluminum objects are actually terminal points in a dense, invisible network of data synchronization and behavioral engineering. Apple no longer operates as a traditional hardware manufacturer. They stopped selling standalone devices years ago. Today, they sell convenience, digital identity, and deeply integrated software systems that happen to require proprietary glass and metal to access. This data visualization highlights the result of that strategy. It shows a 92% customer retention rate for the iPhone, alongside an estimated $10,000 switching cost. That is the financial and logistical burden an established user faces when attempting to migrate their data, repurchase apps, and replace their hardware. That barrier to exit compounds over time. For every additional device a user integrates into their daily routine, an iPad, a set of AirPods, their individual switching cost increases by another 15 to 20%. Apple's $4 trillion market valuation rests entirely on this dynamic. It is built on an architecture of inertia, a meticulously engineered system designed to make leaving the ecosystem operationally exhausting. To understand how this trap functions, we have to examine its foundation in silicon hardware, trace how it manipulates human psychology, observe the massive financial extraction, and finally, look at the artificial intelligence threats currently testing its walls. Apple does not reach a $4 trillion valuation by simply selling the best individual phone. They reach it by engineering an inescapable economic and behavioral dependency. For decades, the dominant model in personal computing was fragmented and modular. A user might run a Google operating system on Samsung hardware while storing their files on a Microsoft cloud server. Apple rejected that modular approach completely. They structured their business to control every single layer of the computing experience. Mixing and matching different companies' technologies naturally introduces friction. Handshakes between different operating systems drop data. Third-party cloud servers lag when communicating with outside hardware. This diagram compares the two models. On the left, disjointed data pathways attempt to connect fragmented brands. On the right is Apple's vertical integration strategy, where data flows flawlessly because one company authored the entire protocol. At the foundation of that vertical stack sits proprietary silicon. Apple designs its own M-series and A-series chips, meaning the physical processors are uniquely optimized to execute the exact commands of Apple's iOS and macOS software. The top layer is iCloud and Apple services. This infrastructure wraps around the hardware and operating systems, constantly synchronizing user data across every device in real time. Absolute vertical control enables cross-device features that modular systems struggle to match. A user can copy a block of text on their Mac and paste it instantly on their iPad using Universal Clipboard, or use their iPhone as a high-resolution wireless webcam. AirDrop perfectly illustrates this design. Sharing massive video files between two Apple devices takes seconds, but attempting to send that same file to a non-Apple laptop introduces significant logistical hurdles. Features like handoff and AirDrop serve a dual purpose. They provide immediate convenience, but they also act as technical barriers. By setting an expectation of zero friction within the network, Apple ensures that any outside alternative feels broken by comparison. That technical foundation leads directly to the second pillar of Apple's strategy, human behavioral psychology. A perfectly seamless user experience breeds operational dependency. When tasks require zero thought, users stop evaluating alternatives. This creates friction aversion. The moment a user considers migrating out of the ecosystem, they face the logistical nightmare of exporting gigabytes of data from iCloud, finding new software equivalents, and repurchasing applications. The effort alone paralyzes them. Look at this habit loop. Apple engineers behavioral conditioning through constant micro-interactions. The Apple Watch provides the cue, the iPhone facilitates the routine, and iCloud provides the reward of instant synchronization. Over time, this triggers the sunk cost fallacy. Users spend years curating high-resolution photo libraries, accumulating automated health data, and configuring smart home networks. Abandoning those curated digital lives feels like a profound personal loss. Apple also leverages sociology, most visibly through iMessage. When an iPhone communicates with another iPhone, messages utilize an encrypted, feature-rich protocol displayed in blue. When a non-Apple device enters a group chat, Apple intentionally downgrades the entire conversation to the aging SMS protocol, turning the bubbles green and breaking high-quality media sharing. This aesthetic divide drives severe social exclusion. Among Generation Z in the United States, iPhone adoption sits at 88%. The green bubble has become an active mark of outgroup status. This chart visualizes empirical data from a Becker-Friedman Institute study. It illustrates exactly how much money college students require to voluntarily have their messages appear as green bubbles to their peers for 4 weeks. The median demand is $49. That $49 figure is not an abstract survey metric. It represents the exact quantifiable value of avoiding the social friction engineered by Apple's software rules. The walled garden weaponizes human behavior. Leaving the ecosystem demands that users willingly accept both operational frustration and social penalty. Deep psychological dependencies allow Apple to reliably extract capital. Extreme switching costs are the direct cause of that 92% retention rate. Holding a captive user base changes the underlying math of the company. Apple does not need to extract all its profit at the point of sale. It can monetize a user continuously over a lifetime. This cascading waterfall chart breaks down Apple's fiscal 2025 results. On the far left, total revenue sits at an enormous $416 billion. The iPhone generated $209 billion of that total. It remains the flagship product, but financially, the hardware is now merely the entry point. The critical metric is the services division. Sitting at $109 billion, it hit an all-time record in 2025, growing 14% year over year. Look at the profitability margins. Hardware yields roughly 35%. Services carry gross margins exceeding 70%. The core economic engine powering that massive high-margin division is the App Store. In 2024, the App Store ecosystem facilitated nearly $1.3 trillion in global billings and sales. It is a digital economy larger than the gross domestic product of many nations. This visual illustrates Apple's commission structure. By controlling the only authorized software gateway onto the iPhone, Apple extracts a 15 to 30% cut on digital goods and in-app subscriptions. Developers have no alternative distribution methods. That commission operates as a private tax, levied on digital commerce occurring within the iOS boundaries. The hardware hooks the user, but it is the invisible services layer that continuously harvests their wealth over the course of their life. A highly fortified walled garden generates massive cash flow, but it also creates massive targets. Today, Apple's architecture faces 2 severe existential breaches. The first vector of attack comes from global regulatory forces, attempting to forcibly lower Apple's engineered switching friction. In the European Union, the Digital Markets Act legally mandates interoperability. The European Commission is actively forcing Apple to open its near-field communication systems, its browser engines, and its wearable connections so that third-party devices function correctly on iPhones. Domestically, the United States Department of Justice has filed a sweeping civil antitrust lawsuit, directly targeting the contractual rules and technical restrictions Apple uses to stifle competition. The second vector is technological. Generative artificial intelligence introduces a technical environment where services move from siloed individual apps into a single conversational interface. If an AI assistant handles tasks directly, it severs the connection between the user and the App Store's transaction points. Without the need to open a specific app to buy a service, Apple's primary method of collecting commissions begins to erode. Apple's counter-strategy is Apple Intelligence. They are utilizing their vertical integration to embed localized AI models so deeply into their proprietary silicon and operating systems that outside competitors cannot effectively circumvent them. Apple Intelligence is a defensive maneuver. It is designed to ensure that artificial intelligence becomes a permanent, managed feature of the walled garden, rather than a bridge leading users out of it. This visual represents the tension of the current moment. The walled garden's secure boundaries face unprecedented external pressure, forcing the ecosystem to evolve. Apple maintains its global market dominance by constructing a perfect architecture of inertia. Absolute vertical integration creates a seamless user experience. That experience triggers deep psychological habit loops, and those habit loops feed a $109 billion services machine. Within this closed loop, consumer convenience inevitably calcifies into an inescapable economic dependency. Apple's ultimate test over the next decade is whether its financial machine can survive a reality
where global regulators mandate open gates and artificial intelligence renders the walls invisible.